The deal on that one is the University of Tennessee, they get everything east of the Mississippi. So UT, east of the Mississippi, that belongs to Tennessee. Texas, we get everything west of the Mississippi. We did it by geographic locations. There are some exceptions to that rule. If Texas goes and somehow plays a bowl game east of the Mississippi or vice versa, Tennessee comes over, plays the Rose Bowl in California, then Tennessee can obviously use their logo for that bowl game purpose. So that's how we.
So what do you mean? You're saying you can't market merchandise with your logo on it east of the Mississippi?
Welcome to episode 93 of the Weekly Docket, a podcast by the Silverman Law Firm where we talk legal news and practical law. Today is October 24th, 2025. I'm Phil Silverman, owner of the firm and your host, and I'm joined by Chris Hills, who's the firm's supervising attorney. Chris, we've got big poker news. You are a poker player.
Nice.
It's the talk. I know Chauncey Billups. I don't know the other NBA guy, but basically defrauding people at the poker table. Okay. And can you explain, have you been following it? Can you explain to the listeners like what they allegedly were doing, or maybe you haven't seen?
I've seen pieces. I think either they had card readers, a lot of the stuff for TV and internet streaming now, there's RFID chips in the cards. So if you're on a table with a card reader, you can read what they are. But I also think there's allegations of like real old school stuff, which is you wear a certain pair of glasses or a certain pair of contacts and certain things show up on the back of the card so that you can see what they are.
Yeah. And they would have probably had to mark the back of the card some kind of way. And then there was
right.
also,
and you can't see it with the naked eye, but you can see it once you have that contact lens in.
Yeah.
So your whole cards are down on the table and he's looking at the back of your cards and he can see you got ace five. And so he knows exactly whether you're bluffing or whether you've got it.
Yeah. There was also, I don't know if you heard this, I thought this was pretty cool, like spy stuff. There was an X-ray poker table or something like that. I don't know if you saw that, where you could actually see underneath the card, see through the table. There's some kind of machine that they were monitoring from the background. Did you hear about that?
I didn't hear about that one. That would be interesting.
And if there's ties, Kash Patel, the FBI director, came out and said, I don't know if we have an exact number on it, but they said it's just massive amounts of money where people have been defrauded. And I guess the thing was Chauncey Billups and this NBA guy, everyone wants to be friends with NBA people. So maybe they were bringing in other NBA players or other wealthy sports people, or who knows, or maybe it was just a really wealthy, they call him a whale, I guess, that, what thinks it's cool to play poker with an NBA basketball coach. And
yeah, if you got invited to go play cards with Chauncey Billups, you'd go.
Whew, I'm glad I did it. But yeah, that's what happened. And I didn't even know that there were still Italian crime families in existence operating in the United States. I thought that was just like a thing that died out in the 50s or 60s, but apparently it's still a thing.
I'd certainly believe it's still a thing. It may not get all the publicity it used to get, but it's definitely still a thing.
Okay. All right, let's talk about what's on our docket today. For our legal news section, we're going to be talking about your law school alma mater, Baylor University, suing the other lesser BU, Boston University, in a trademark dispute. And then we're going to answer a couple of legal questions about hiring attorneys to review purchase contracts, and then a question about forming an LLC with foreign persons. So let's get it kicked off with our legal news section. And the first thing we're talking about, Baylor University, they filed a lawsuit against BU, Boston University, over the interlocking BU logos. I'm sure you're familiar with what the logos look like. And I just learned this, but there was an agreement that goes back to some 1988, I think. And the deal was BU, Boston University, was only supposed to put the BU side by side. Baylor said, we'll use the interlocking BU. Okay. But apparently Boston University started doing an interlocking BU as well. And that upset the people in Waco, and Baylor filed the lawsuit. Now, the question on these trademark cases, Chris, is is the public going to be confused? Is there a likelihood of public confusion? Isn't Baylor green and BU red? Isn't that enough? Or what do you think?
You might think so. I don't know. That's very interesting to me, how you can trademark letters
Yeah.
just to begin with. But I'm sure I can't just change the colors of the Dodgers logo, even though it's just letters, or
Yeah.
certainly not New York Yankees with their font or something like that. But just the interlocking letters at every school, plus every university is going to have a U in it. So that kind of takes away from the ability of people to do it. I don't know. I hear what you're saying. Aren't Boston like red and black or something?
They're scarlet. Technically, their red is called a scarlet. But yeah, I guess you watch college football. There's a trend of these alternative colors and jerseys that they do all the time. I think the Oregon Ducks were the first ones to really go crazy with it, if you know what I'm talking about, with just alternative uniforms.
Because they have a deal with Nike and they're right there in Nike's backyard. So they're like, let's just go crazy. Let's make orange uniforms if we want.
I think Nike wanted them to be able to sell more jerseys. So we can sell more jerseys if we have different colors. So yeah, maybe Baylor wants to go a little crazy with it. It's not about the color. That's a good point about the Dodgers. It's okay. The Dodgers are traditionally blue. Could you just change the color and be the minor league Dodgers? Probably not. They're going to have it out. They're going to see who wins this deal. They're pretty upset about the BUs of the world. And you are familiar with, there's another, my school, Chris, University of Texas at Austin. There's the issue with accidentally being confused with the University of Tennessee, which I don't know how anyone would do that because Tennessee is much lesser of a school, but we're talking about the real UT. And that agreement between Tennessee and Texas goes back to 1986. Do you know that one? Have you heard of that one or not really?
Can't say I have.
The deal on that one is the University of Tennessee, they get everything east of the Mississippi. So UT, east of the Mississippi, that belongs to Tennessee. Texas, we get everything west of the Mississippi. We did it by geographic locations. There are some exceptions to that rule. If Texas goes and somehow plays a bowl game east of the Mississippi or vice versa, Tennessee comes over, plays the Rose Bowl in California, then Tennessee can obviously use their logo for that bowl game purpose. So that's how we.
So what do you mean? You're saying you can't market merchandise with your logo on it east of the Mississippi?
See, I don't think that almost sounds crazy to me. I did not actually think about the consequences and what those really are. Can you not really buy a University of Tennessee jersey on this side of the Mississippi? That doesn't sound right. And of course, this agreement was made in 1986. So it would have been much easier to enforce geographic things prior to the internet and where schools were much more localized. So it'd be curious to go back and look at really what that agreement specified and how that's being enforced today. I bet it is, you can, I don't know. When's the last time you've gone into Dick's Sporting Goods in Texas and seen a University of Tennessee jersey for sale? Maybe it's still the deal, Chris. I don't know.
Yeah, I think those are pretty local anyway. Though.
Right.
I don't think they would be selling them. I didn't go to any Dick's Sporting Goods when I was in Tennessee last week, but I'm sure I would have seen them.
Okay, we've got your next
volunteers.
We've got your next business trip planned for you. So,
all right, I'll check it out.
All right.
I have seen. In one case in my life, I knew a girl who had a keychain that had a UT interlocking logo, and I have never seen that again. I was like, I've never seen UT use the interlocking logo, but apparently it exists.
It does, and I have seen that before, but I don't think it's quite as popular. All right, we got to move on to our legal questions section. This one came from somebody emailing in. So, should I hire an attorney to review my standard residential purchase contract to buy a home? So the realtors will tell you no. Chris, I think if you've bought a lot of homes before and you're fairly comfortable with it, you're talking about the TREC form, you may be okay. I generally think it is a good idea for anybody that may not be that sophisticated. What do you think?
I think it is a good idea. I think we charge pretty reasonable rates. I think if you really are uncomfortable and you have not done it before, I think it's a good idea just to know that, hey, I have an attorney that put eyes on this. I have an attorney that answered all my questions, that I feel read everything, made sure no one changed the standard terms, nothing crazy. And that's the first question everybody asks us. Do you see anything out of the ordinary? which is a loaded and a very broad question. But just to have us walk them through it, especially if it's an expensive deal, the rates we charge, it's not that expensive. Knowing you've had a licensed attorney, not just a real estate agent, all credit to real estate agents, but they're not attorneys. It's not a bad idea, I guess, is my very long-winded answer to your
I
question.
agree. If you're just talking about the contract review, I don't know. I can't remember what we charge for it. It might be $500 or something like that just to review the contract. It's not much relative as far as attorney prices go. We do add some value. The two things I can think we do all the time when we review these is if we represent the buyer, we'll strike specific performance against the buyers because sellers really don't need specific performance as a remedy against a buyer. And then we also clean up some title insurance stuff. Now, aside from the contract review, this wasn't the question, but if you're talking about support all the way through closing and getting your deal closed, I do think it's a good idea to have an attorney on that. You never know what's going to come up. People usually come to us when there's a problem, which is fine too. But I'm working on a deal right now that is in a very nice area of Houston, and you would think that those houses never have any problems, and the things just got some very complex tax liens on them. And that's been heavily attorney driven. So just when you think you might not need an attorney, things do come up with that. But yeah. All right, let's move on to our second legal question for the day, and kind of our final question and topic we're doing for the show today. It's going to be a short show. Here it is. My business partner and I are going to start a Texas-based LLC. One of us is a U.S. citizen. The rest are foreign investors. We are seeking professional help with drafting and negotiating operational agreements. First thing, foreign people, Chris, they can absolutely own a Texas LLC. The state of Texas does not care about that. So be owned by foreign persons, no problem. It looks like this person, Chris, he wants us to negotiate with the foreign person the operating agreement. Do you see any problems? And this is my rhetorical question for our younger lawyers. Do you see any problems with representing both the foreign person and the U.S. person when you're negotiating the operating agreement between the two of them?
Just from a pure conflict standpoint, yeah, there could definitely be issues. I definitely don't want to be that guy. I like when I represent one person, even do it this way.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon and it's not unprofessional for everybody to just have their own guy, similar to what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Just have your own guy in your corner, answering your questions, helping you.
Yeah. When I do the onboarding for some of our new attorneys and we get to the conflict section, I always say, hey, look, litigation conflicts are easy. You can't represent the defendant and the plaintiff. Transactions are much more complex when you're spotting conflicts. But this would be an example where if you've got two parties in a transaction that are adverse to each other in a hotly negotiated situation of an operating agreement, that's almost certainly a conflict and you can't represent both of them. So I thought it was a good example of when a conflict might arise. Now, if you do have a foreign, back to the question, this is more tax related, because really I think they think there's something special that the state's going to require for foreign ownership when there's really not. All the special issues arise when you're talking about tax. And if you have an LLC and one of them is a foreign owner, you can't be an S corp. S corps can only be owned by U.S. persons, and that's because the S corp is a pass-through entity. So as a country, our tax code understands that the income is being passed through to a U.S.-based person. It's going to get taxed at that time. That doesn't work for a foreign person. The income can't be passed through and distributed to the foreign person, and then we have no way of collecting the tax in that other country. If you were going to have a foreign person owner, you can absolutely elect C corp status. And if you just leave it as disregarded, it can be a partnership. The downside of leaving it as a partnership is you've got to do some foreign. I think the short answer is it gets real complex when you have foreign persons and you leave it as a partnership. You're going to have to do some additional tax withholding. And those foreign persons, they're going to have to get tax identification numbers. They have to file something what's called a 1040 NR. It's a non-resident 1040. So yeah, it gets complex on the tax side, but not the state entity formation side is how that goes. Any questions about that, Chris? That stuff, I know you're not the tax guy, but for some reason I've had a passion for tax, but
hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. We all have our passion. No, that makes sense. I couldn't have articulated it that way, but people do ask us a lot. Can a foreign person own an entity? Can a foreign person own land?
Yeah.
And yes, you can. And you're exactly right. Where the complexities come in is what do you do after that? All the reporting, all the tax paying.
Yeah. Here you go. All right, that brings our show to a close. I've been your host, Phil Silverman. Chris Heald has been my co-host today. Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcast. And as a reminder, nothing in this show to be considered legal advice, and this has all been for entertainment purposes only. If you have a legal question, email us at info@silblawfirm.com. That's info@silblawfirm.com. Tell us you want it publicly answered in the podcast. Everybody have a great weekend.